The ceremony hall was cold. Hana stood in the center, her hands trembling at her sides. Around her, the crystalline walls reflected light in 1,000 colors, but none of that beauty touched her heart. She knew what was coming. Everyone in the room knew. Her father sat at the high table, his face like stone. Beside him were the council members, all wearing their formal robes that shimmered with the patterns of high-caste Varath. Those patterns marked them as perfect, as worthy. Hana looked down at her own skin. No patterns, just plain, pale crystal that marked her as flawed from birth. The decision is final. Her father's voice echoed through the hall. He did not look at her. He had not looked at her properly in years. Hana of the House of Light has been rejected by all suitable matches. She carries genetic flaws that cannot be permitted to spread through our bloodlines. Hana felt her chest tighten. She had known this would happen after the last rejection, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. 5 marriage arrangements, 5 rejections. Each family had taken one look at her medical reports and walked away. Some had been kind about it. Most had not. According to our laws, those who cannot contribute to the continuation of our species must not burden our resources. Her father continued reading from the tablet in front of him, still not looking at her. Hana will be exiled to the borderlands, effective immediately. The borderlands. Everyone knew what that meant. It was not really exile. It was execution with extra steps. The borderlands were the contested zones between Varath space and the Kreth Empire. No law, no protection, no mercy. People sent there did not come back. Hana's mother sat in the corner of the room, weeping silently. At least her mother cried. That was something. But her mother was also a high-caste Varath, married into the House of Light. She would not speak against the council. She would not defend her flawed daughter. "Do you have anything to say?" one of the council members asked. He sounded bored. Hana lifted her head. She looked at her father, willing him to meet her eyes. Just once. Just one moment of connection before they threw her away. But he kept his gaze fixed on the tablet. "No," Hana said quietly. "I have nothing to say." What was there to say? That she did not choose to be born with a weak immune system? That she tried her best to be a good daughter? That she studied hard, learned everything they taught her, and never complained? None of it mattered. In Varath society, only perfection mattered. Only the patterns mattered. 2 guards came forward. They were not rough with her, but they were not gentle either. They simply did their job, escorting her out of the ceremony hall and toward the transport ship waiting outside. Hana walked between them with her head up. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break down. The transport ship was small and bare. Just a pilot and enough space for a single passenger. They gave her a pack with basic supplies: water tablets, protein bars, a thermal blanket, and a small medical kit. Enough to survive for maybe a week if she was careful. After that, she would be on her own. "Where are you taking me?" Hana asked the pilot as they left the atmosphere of Varath Prime. The pilot glanced back at her. He was young, probably doing his mandatory service before moving on to better assignments. "Moon designation X-47. It's in the outer borderlands. There are some old structures there, ruins from the colonial period." "Is anyone else there?" "Not anymore." The pilot turned back to his controls. "There used to be a mining operation, but it was abandoned 20 years ago. Too dangerous. Kreth scouts pass through the area regularly." So they were not even pretending to give her a chance. They were dropping her directly in a war zone with no way to defend herself and no way to call for help. Hana leaned her head against the cold wall of the transport and closed her eyes. She thought about her childhood. She remembered being 5 years old and not understanding why the other children did not want to play with her. She remembered being 10 and overhearing her father tell her mother that they should have requested genetic correction when they had the chance. She remembered being 15 and watching her sister get married in a beautiful ceremony while she stood in the shadows, knowing no one would ever choose her. The Vareth valued beauty, genetic perfection, and social contribution above everything else. They had built a civilization on these principles. They had elegant cities, advanced technology, and a society where everyone knew their place. But there was no place in that society for people like Hana. The journey took 6 hours. When they finally approached the moon, Hana looked out the window and saw nothing but gray rock and dust. There were a few structures in the distance, half collapsed and abandoned. This was going to be her new home. This was where she would die. The pilot landed near one of the larger buildings. When the door opened, cold air rushed in. Hana grabbed her pack and stepped out onto the dusty ground. The gravity was lighter here than on Vareth Prime. Each step felt strange, like she might float away. "Good luck," the pilot said. He did not sound like he meant it. He was already preparing to take off again. Hana watched the transport ship rise into the sky and disappear among the stars. She stood there for a long time, feeling the cold wind against her face. Then she picked up her pack and walked toward the nearest building. Inside, it was dark and empty. Old equipment lay scattered across the floor, covered in dust. There were a few rooms that still had doors. Hana chose one that looked stable and set down her pack. This would be her shelter. She sat on the floor and opened the pack. She counted the protein bars. 12. The water tablets would last a bit longer if she was careful. The medical kit had bandages, antiseptic, and pain medication. Nothing that would help if she got seriously sick or injured. Hana wrapped the thermal blanket around her shoulders and stared at the wall. She thought about her father's face during the ceremony, how he refused to look at her, how he spoke about her like she was already dead. "I am not dead yet," Hana whispered to the empty room. Her voice sounded small and lost, but there was a trace of defiance in it. "I am still here." She did not know how long she would survive. She did not know if anyone would ever come, but she knew one thing. She would not give up, not yet. Even if her own people had thrown her away, even if they believed she was worthless, she would survive as long as she could. Because maybe, just maybe, they were wrong about her. Maybe there was more to life than genetic patterns and social hierarchies. Maybe somewhere in this vast universe, there was a place where people like her mattered. Hana pulled the blanket tighter and closed her eyes. Tomorrow she would explore more of the ruins. Tomorrow she would figure out how to find water and maybe food. Tomorrow she would begin learning how to survive. But tonight, she let herself grieve for the life she would never have, for the family that abandoned her, and for the girl she used to be before she understood that she was considered broken. 3 weeks. Hana had survived 3 weeks on the moon, and each day was harder than the last. The protein bars were gone. The water tablets were almost finished. And now, worse than hunger or thirst, her body was failing. The infection had started 5 days ago. A small cut on her hand, nothing serious. But with her weak immune system and no proper medicine, it had spread. Now her whole arm was swollen and hot to the touch. Fever made her thoughts fuzzy. Sometimes she was not sure what was real and what was fever dreams. She had learned the layout of the ruins during her first week. There were 7 buildings still partially standing, and she had searched them all for anything useful. She found containers that collected morning condensation for water. She found some old emergency rations in a sealed cabinet, expired but still edible. She even found a broken communicator that she tried to fix, though she had no idea who she would call if she got it working. But none of that mattered now. The infection was killing her. She could feel it. Hana lay in her chosen room, wrapped in the thermal blanket, shivering despite the fever. Her arm throbbed with pain. She knew she should try to get up, try to find more water, but her body would not cooperate. She drifted in and out of consciousness, losing track of time. A sound woke her. Footsteps, heavy boots on metal, voices speaking a language she did not recognize. Hana forced her eyes open. Through the doorway, she saw shadows moving. Her heart jumped. Someone was here. But who? Vareth would not come to the borderlands, which meant Kreth. Terror gave her strength. The Kreth Empire was known throughout the galaxy for their cruelty. They were reptilian warriors who took prisoners only to torture them for information or entertainment. If they found her, death would not come quickly. Hana tried to stand, but her legs would not hold her. She collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. The footsteps were getting closer. She could hear their voices now, harsh and clicking. They were searching the buildings. She crawled into the corner of the room, pulling the blanket over herself, knowing it was useless. If they searched this room, they would find her. She was too weak to run, too weak to fight. After 3 weeks of surviving, she was going to die anyway. The door burst open. A Kreth warrior stood in the doorway, tall and covered in dark scales, holding a rifle. Its yellow eyes scanned the room and locked onto her. It made a clicking sound that might have been laughter and raised its weapon. Then the world exploded with noise. Gunfire erupted from somewhere outside. The Kreth warrior spun around, returning fire. Hana heard shouting in that other language, the one she did not recognize. More weapons firing, the sounds of a battle. The Kreth warrior in her doorway jerked and fell, dark blood spreading across its chest. Hana pressed herself harder against the wall, terrified. What was happening? "Clear left," a voice shouted. The language was still foreign, but somehow less harsh than the Kreth sounds. "Movement in the back room," another voice. "Check it. Hyun, cover." Footsteps approached again, but these were different. Organized. Careful. A figure appeared in the doorway. And Hana's fever-addled mind struggled to process what she was seeing. It was not Varath. It was not Kreth. It was something else entirely. The figure was shorter than either species, wearing military armor that was scratched and dusty. The face behind the helmet visor was strange. Flat features, brown skin, dark eyes, no scales, no crystal patterns, just soft flesh. The figure lowered its weapon and spoke into a communication device on its wrist. "Contact! We have a civilian here. Non-Kreth. Looks like... I don't know what species. Female, I think. She's in bad shape." The figure moved closer, and Hana tried to move away, but her body would not respond. She was shaking violently now, the fever spiking. "Hey, it's okay." The voice was softer now, gentle. "I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Day. I'm a medic with the Terran Coalition. Can you understand me?" Hana could not understand the words, but something in the tone made her stop struggling. She stared at the stranger as it removed its helmet. The face underneath was young, male, with kind eyes. Human. She had heard of humans, but never seen one. They were a newer species in the galactic community, barely a century into space travel. Day knelt beside her and carefully pulled back the blanket. His eyes widened when he saw her infected arm. He spoke into his communicator again, faster now. "Captain, civilian is critical. Severe infection, high fever, possible sepsis. I need to start treatment immediately." A voice crackled back through the communicator. Hana could not make out the words. "I understand protocol, ma'am," Day said firmly. "But she'll be dead in a few hours if we leave her. I'm bringing her back to base." More crackling. Day's jaw tightened. "With respect, Captain, I didn't become a medic to let people die when I can save them. She's coming with us." He put the communicator away and looked at Hana. "This is going to hurt, but I need to get you out of here. Those Kreth were scouts. More will come. Do you understand?" Hana did not understand the words, but she understood the urgency in his voice. She managed a small nod. "Good." Day carefully slid one arm under her legs and another behind her back. He lifted her easily despite his smaller size. Hana's head rolled against his shoulder. Through the fever, she felt the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. Outside, two more humans waited. One was smaller, probably female, holding a rifle and watching the perimeter. The other was male, checking something on a handheld device. Hyun, lead. Tae, rear guard. We move fast. Day adjusted his grip on Hana. Let's go home. They moved through the ruins quickly but carefully. Hana drifted in and out of awareness. She caught glimpses of the gray sky, felt the bounce of Day's steady stride, heard the humans communicating in short, efficient phrases. Everything felt dreamlike, unreal. At some point, they reached a vehicle. Hana was placed on a stretcher inside. Day immediately began working on her arm, cleaning the wound, injecting something that made the pain recede slightly. His hands were quick and sure, completely focused on his task. "Stay with me," he said, even though she could not understand. "You're going to be okay. I've got you." The vehicle started moving. Hana felt the vibration through the stretcher. She looked up at Day's face as he continued working on her arm. He looked worried but determined. Why was he helping her? She was a stranger, an alien, someone even her own people had thrown away, but this human was risking something by bringing her along. She had heard him arguing with his commander. He had chosen to save her anyway. Hana's eyes filled with tears. Not from pain, though there was plenty of that. From something else. Something she had not felt in a very long time. Hope. "Thank you," she whispered in her own language, knowing he could not understand. But Day looked down at her and smiled. "You're welcome," he said, as if he knew exactly what she had said. The vehicle continued across the dusty landscape, carrying her away from the ruins where she was supposed to die. Hana closed her eyes and let the darkness take her, but for the first time in 3 weeks, she was not afraid. Someone had come for her. Someone had decided she was worth saving. A human soldier held her in his arms and carried her toward safety, asking nothing in return. Her people had called her unsuitable, had left her to die in the borderlands. But here in the darkness of the vehicle, with gentle hands treating her wounds, Hana began to believe that maybe her people had been wrong about more than just her. Maybe they had been wrong about everything. Hana woke to the sound of machines beeping. For a moment, panic seized her. Where was she? Then memories came flooding back. The Kreth, the human soldier, being carried to safety. She opened her eyes slowly. The room was small and clean, with white walls and bright lights overhead. Medical equipment surrounded the bed where she lay. Her arm was properly bandaged now, and the terrible heat of fever had broken. She felt weak but clear-headed. "You're awake." The voice made her turn her head. Day sat in a chair beside the bed, looking tired but pleased. He stood and checked one of the machines. "Good. Your fever came down 12 hours ago. The antibiotics are working." Hana stared at him. She still could not understand his words, but his tone was warm and reassuring. He noticed her confusion and tapped something on his wrist device. A holographic display appeared between them. "Translation program," he said. This time his words came through the device in her language. "It's not perfect, but it should help us communicate." "Can you understand me now?" "Yes." Hana's voice came out as a whisper. She tried to sit up, but Day gently pressed her shoulder. "Easy. You've been unconscious for almost 2 days. Your body needs rest." He adjusted her pillows so she could sit up slightly. "How do you feel?" "Better." Hana looked at her bandaged arm. "You saved my life." "That's my job." Day smiled. "I'm a combat medic, though I have to admit I've never treated your species before. I had to look up Vareth physiology in the database. Your immune system is very different from ours." "My immune system is defective." The words came out automatically, the same words she had heard all her life. Day frowned. It's weaker than average for your species, according to the data. But defective? That's a harsh word. It is the correct word. In Verath society, genetic imperfection is not tolerated. That is why I was exiled. Hana met his eyes. Why did you help me? Your commander did not want you to bring me. Day was quiet for a moment. He sat back down in his chair. Captain Jiwan follows protocol. Protocol says we don't risk human lives for non-allied aliens in contested zones. But sometimes protocol and the right thing to do are not the same. He shrugged. You needed help. I could help. It's that simple. It is not simple. Hana shook her head. You argued with your commander for me. You carried me while your squad was in danger. Why would you do that for a stranger? Because you're a person. Day said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. You were dying. I had the skills and medicine to save you. What else would I do? Leave you there? Hana felt something twist in her chest. On Verath Prime, the answer would have been yes. Leave her there. Do not waste resources on flawed genetics. But this human spoke as if helping was the only option that made sense. My people would have left me, she said quietly. They did leave me. Day's expression darkened. Then your people have some serious problems with their values. Over the next few days, Hana remained in the medical bay while her body healed. Day visited often, checking her progress and talking with her through the translation device. She learned that the outpost was small, housing only about 30 human soldiers who patrolled the borderlands watching for Kreth incursions. This is frontier duty, Day explained one afternoon. We're basically the early warning system. If the Kreth start massing forces, we report it and get out of the way. It sounds dangerous. It is, but someone has to do it. Day changed the bandage on her arm. The infection was gone now, leaving only a healing wound. The Kreth Empire wants to expand into this sector. If we don't hold the line, they'll push into populated systems. Why does your species fight them? Humans are new to space. You could stay in your own territory. Day looked at her seriously. Because when we joined the galactic community, we saw what the Kreth do to the people they conquer. We saw the species they've enslaved and the worlds they've destroyed. Maybe we're new to space, but we're not going to stand by and watch that happen if we can help stop it. Hana thought about that. The Verath knew about the Kreth, too. Everyone did. But the Verath strategy was to maintain their borders, stay neutral, and avoid conflict. They did not send soldiers to fight for other species. They certainly did not risk their lives for genetic rejects in the borderlands. One evening, Captain Jiwan came to visit. She was a stern woman with sharp eyes, her hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked at Hana for a long moment before speaking through the translator. Medic Day tells me you're recovering well. Yes. Thank you for allowing me to stay. I didn't have much choice once Day brought you here. Jiwan's tone was dry but not hostile. But I need to know what your plans are. We can't keep you here permanently. This is a military outpost, not a refugee center. I understand. Hana had been wondering the same thing. Where could she go? She could not return to Verath Prime. She had been exiled, marked as unsuitable. I do not know what to do. Jiwan sighed. When we rotate out in 2 months, we can drop you at a neutral station. From there, you'll have to figure something out. Until then, if you're going to eat our food and use our resources, you need to contribute. Can you do that? Yes. Hana sat up straighter. I can work. What do you need? Talk to Corporal Minji in the commissary. She'll find something for you. Jiwan turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Whatever your people think about you, Day was right to bring you in. No one deserves to be left to die like that. After Jiwan left, Hana sat quietly, processing the conversation. These humans expected her to contribute, but they also accepted her presence without question. No one had looked at her with disgust. No one had mentioned her genetic flaws or called her unsuitable. The next day, Hana started helping in the commissary. The work was simple, preparing food and cleaning, but it felt good to be useful. The other humans were curious about her, but friendly. They asked questions about Vareth culture, and she asked about Earth. Through these conversations, Hana began to understand how different humans were from her own people. Humans valued family bonds even when family members were imperfect. They had concepts like adoption, where they would take in children who were not genetically related and love them as their own. They celebrated diversity instead of demanding uniformity. They had laws protecting people with disabilities and medical conditions. "We used to have problems with that too," Day told her one night. They were sitting in the common area, and he was showing her pictures of Earth on his tablet. Hundreds of years ago, people were judged by things they couldn't control: skin color, gender, who they loved, whether they had disabilities. We fought hard to move past that. We're still not perfect, but we try. "My people think they are perfect," Hana said. "That is the problem." "Yeah," Day nodded. "The species that think they've reached perfection usually stop growing. They stop learning. They stop being compassionate because compassion looks like weakness to them." Hana looked at the pictures of Earth. Blue oceans, green forests, cities with millions of imperfect humans all living together. It looked chaotic compared to the ordered elegance of Vareth Prime, but it also looked alive in a way her homeworld never had. "I wish I could see it," she said quietly. "Your world." "Maybe someday you will." Day smiled at her. "The galaxy is a big place, Hana, full of second chances." For the first time since her exile, Hana felt something bloom in her chest. Not just hope, possibility. These humans had shown her that there was another way to live. A way where her imperfections did not define her worth. A way where strangers helped each other simply because it was the right thing to do. She thought about Day carrying her through the ruins, arguing with his commander to save her life, treating her wounds with gentle hands. She thought about Jiwan giving her a place to stay and work to do. She thought about all the soldiers who had accepted her presence without judgment. They said she was unsuitable for marriage. They left her to die. But a human soldier held her in his arms and brought her back to life. And now, surrounded by these strange, compassionate beings from a distant world, Hana began to believe that maybe unsuitable was not the same as unworthy. Maybe she had always had value. Maybe her people had just been too blind to see it. Hana had been at the outpost for 5 weeks when she finally learned about Day's sister. It was late evening, and most of the soldiers were in the recreation area watching a movie from Earth. Hana had gone to the observation deck instead, drawn by the view of stars through the reinforced window. She found Day there, sitting alone in the darkness, staring out at space. He looked different than usual. The easy smile was gone, replaced by something heavy and sad. Hana almost left him alone, but something made her stay. "May I sit?" she asked. Day looked up, surprised. Then he nodded and gestured to the seat beside him. "Of course. Couldn't sleep? The artificial lights in my quarters are too bright. My eyes are sensitive." Hana sat down. "What are you looking at?" "That star cluster." Day pointed to a bright grouping of stars. "If you go past it and keep going for about 300 light years, you reach Sol, my home system. You miss it." "Yeah." Day was quiet for a moment. "Today is my sister's birthday. Would have been her birthday. She died 4 years ago." Hana felt her chest tighten. "I am sorry." "Her name was Yuna. She was 6 years younger than me. Brightest kid you ever met. Wanted to be a scientist when she grew up." Day smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "She had a genetic disorder. We have good medicine on Earth. Really good, but some things we still can't fix. Her body just slowly stopped working. That must have been very hard for your family." "It was hardest on her. She was so scared at the end." Day's voice cracked slightly. I was 17 when she died. I held her hand in the hospital and promised her it would be okay, but it wasn't okay. She was 13 years old and she died anyway. Hana did not know what to say. She thought about her own people and how they handled genetic disorders. On Vareth Prime, children like Yuna would not be born at all. They would be screened out before birth. The Vareth called it quality control. They called it responsible breeding. "Is that why you became a medic?" she asked quietly. "Yeah." Day nodded. "I couldn't save Yuna, but I can save other people. Every life I save is like keeping a promise to her. Does that sound stupid?" "No, it sounds honorable." Day finally looked at her. "When I saw you in those ruins, dying from infection, I saw Yuna. Not literally, you don't look anything alike. But I saw someone who needed help, someone whose life was valuable even if others didn't see it. I couldn't walk away. Your commander said it was against protocol. Protocol doesn't account for everything. Protocol is about efficiency and rules. But sometimes the right thing to do is inefficient. Sometimes it breaks rules." Day leaned back in his chair. "My sister taught me that. She used to say that the measure of a society isn't how it treats its best and strongest. It's how it treats its weakest and most vulnerable." Hana felt tears forming in her eyes. "Your sister was very wise." "She was. And she would have liked you, I think. She always stood up for people others dismissed." Day smiled at her, a real smile this time. "She would have been angry as hell about what your people did to you." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars. Hana thought about Yuna, a young human girl she would never meet, whose death had somehow saved her life. If Day had not lost his sister, would he have fought so hard to save a stranger? Would he have argued with his commander and carried her through the ruins? "Thank you for telling me about her," Hana said. "Thank you for listening." Day stood and stretched. "I should get some sleep. Tomorrow's patrol day. You want to walk back together?" As they walked through the corridors, Hana noticed other things about the outpost she had not fully understood before. Pictures on the walls, personal items in the common areas, small shrines and memory spaces. The humans carried their losses with them. They did not hide their grief or pretend that the weak and vulnerable did not matter. They honored them. The next morning, Hana learned more about how humans handled hardship. An alarm blared through the outpost, sending everyone to their stations. Hana stayed in the commissary with Corporal Minji while the soldiers prepared for potential combat. "What is happening?" Hana asked, trying to stay out of the way. "Kreth patrol detected in our sector. Bigger than usual." Minji checked the monitors. "They're testing our defenses, seeing how we respond." Through the security feeds, Hana watched as the human soldiers moved with practiced efficiency. They were outnumbered. The Kreth force was at least 3 times their size, but the humans did not retreat. They held their positions, coordinated their fire, and used their smaller numbers to their advantage through tactics and strategy. The engagement lasted 2 hours. When it was over, the Kreth had withdrawn, but the cost was clear. 3 humans were injured, 1 seriously. Day was in the medical bay working frantically to stabilize the wounded soldier, a young man named Junho. Hana brought supplies from the storage room, helping however she could. She watched Day work with absolute focus, his hands steady even though she could see the fear in his eyes. This was someone he knew, someone he served with, someone he cared about. "Come on, Junho," Day muttered as he worked. "Stay with me. You've got a family waiting back on Earth. You've got a son who needs his father. Stay with me." Junho survived. Barely, but he survived. When he was finally stable, Day slumped against the wall, exhausted and shaking. Hana brought him water and sat beside him. "You saved him," she said. "For now." Day drank the water gratefully. He'll need surgery we can't do here. We're requesting a medical transport, but it'll take 3 days to arrive, 3 days to keep him alive. You will do it. I have to. Day looked at her with those tired, determined eyes. That's what we do. We don't leave people behind. We don't give up on them because saving them is hard. We fight for every single life like it matters because it does matter. Over the next 3 days, Hana watched the entire outpost rally around Junho. Soldiers donated their own medical supplies. Captain Jiwon adjusted patrol schedules so Day could focus on his patient. Minji organized meal rotations to ensure Junho's friends could visit him. Everyone contributed in whatever way they could. It was nothing like Vareth society, where resources were carefully allocated based on genetic value and social status. These humans gave without calculating return. They helped because one of their own needed help. On the 3rd day, the medical transport arrived. As they prepared to evacuate Junho, he was conscious enough to speak. He grabbed Day's hand weakly. "You're crazy, you know that?" Junho said, smiling despite his pain. "No one else would have pulled off what you did." "I had help," Day replied. "The whole outpost had your back." "That's what I mean. You taught us that. You taught us to fight for each other." Junho glanced at Hana. "Even for strangers." After Junho was safely on the transport, Hana found Day back on the observation deck. He was staring at the stars again, but this time he did not look sad. He looked tired but peaceful. "You carry a heavy burden," Hana said, sitting beside him. "We all do. Every person who chooses to care about others carries that burden." Day looked at her. "But it's a good burden, Hana. It's what makes us human. Not our technology or our intelligence. Our willingness to carry each other's weight." Hana thought about her people, who had abandoned her to avoid the burden she represented. She thought about these humans who took on burdens willingly, who fought for lives others deemed not worth saving, who honored their dead by saving the living. "I think I understand now," she said, "why you helped me. It was not just about your sister. No, it was about who I choose to be." Day smiled at her. "And who we are as a species. We're not the strongest in the galaxy. We're not the smartest or the most advanced, but we're the ones who show up. We're the ones who stay. We're the ones who fight for people others throw away." Hana felt something shift inside her. A fundamental understanding. She had spent her whole life believing what her people told her, that her value was measured in genetic perfection and social utility. But these humans had shown her a different truth. Value was not something you were born with or earned through perfection. Value was inherent. Every life mattered. Every person deserved a chance, and the measure of a civilization was not its achievements or its elegance. It was how it treated those who needed help the most. "Thank you, Day," Hana said softly, "for everything." "You don't have to thank me for treating you like a person, Hana. That should be the bare minimum. The fact that it's not, the fact that you're grateful for basic compassion, that says more about your people than it does about mine." They sat together in the darkness, watching the stars, two people from different worlds connected by a simple truth. Everyone deserves to be saved. Everyone deserves to be valued. And sometimes, the greatest strength is caring enough to shoulder each other's burdens. The warning came during breakfast. Hana was helping Minji prepare morning rations when every screen in the outpost turned red and alarms began blaring. Captain Jiwon's voice crackled over the intercom. "All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Major Kreth force detected incoming. Multiple battalion strength with armor support. Estimated arrival 20 minutes. Prepare for immediate evacuation." The commissary erupted into controlled chaos. Soldiers abandoned their meals and ran to their positions. Hana stood frozen, unsure what to do. Minji grabbed her arm. "Come with me. Civilians go to the evacuation point." Minji pulled her along the corridor toward the landing bay. "We've trained for this! Everyone gets out!" The landing bay was already crowded with personnel gathering their emergency gear. 2 transport shuttles sat ready, their engines warming up. Hana saw Day across the bay helping load medical supplies. He looked calm but focused, moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who had prepared for this moment. Captain Jiwon stood on an elevated platform, coordinating the evacuation. "Listen up. Priority 1 is getting everyone off this rock before the Kreth arrive. Shuttle Alpha takes the first 20, Shuttle Beta takes the remaining 13. Load essential equipment only. We leave in 15 minutes. Hana quickly did the math. The outpost had 33 people, 20 on the first shuttle, 13 on the second. That accounted for everyone. She felt relief wash through her. The humans had planned this carefully. They would all escape. Then she saw Day talking urgently with Jiwon. Even from a distance, she could see the tension in his posture. Jiwon was shaking her head. Day gestured toward Hana, his voice rising. Jiwon said something sharp, and Day's shoulders slumped. Hana's relief evaporated. Something was wrong. Day walked toward her, his face grim. Behind him, the first shuttle's loading ramp began closing. Soldiers piled into the second shuttle. The math suddenly became clear and terrible. 33 human soldiers. 2 shuttles with enough seats for 33 people total. But Hana was not included in that count. She was the 34th person on this base. "Hana." Day's voice was gentle but strained. "We have a problem. There is no room for me." She said it flatly, without emotion. Inside, something cold and familiar settled in her chest. Of course there was no room. There had never been room for her anywhere. "The shuttles were designed for human evacuation only. We didn't plan for additional personnel." Day pulled a small device from his pocket. "This is an emergency beacon, military grade. Once activated, it broadcasts a distress signal that any coalition ship can detect. I'm giving it to you. You are leaving me behind. We don't have a choice. If we try to overload the shuttles, we risk everyone." Day pressed the beacon into her hand. "But listen to me carefully. Once we're clear and the Kreth occupy this base, activate the beacon. A rescue ship will come for you within 48 hours. I promise." "You cannot promise that." "I can, and I do." Day gripped her shoulders. "Hana, you've survived 3 weeks in the borderlands before we found you. You can survive 2 more days. Hide in the lower tunnels. The Kreth will search the main base first. By the time they reach the deep levels, rescue will be here." 30 seconds until departure," Jiwon shouted. "I have to go." Day started backing toward the shuttle, his eyes never leaving Hana's face. 2 days. Hide and wait. Do you understand?" Hana nodded numbly. She watched as Day turned and ran toward the shuttle. The loading ramp began to close. Then something happened that Hana would replay in her mind for the rest of her life. Day stopped, right at the edge of the ramp, with safety just steps away. He stopped. He looked at the shuttle, then back at Hana, his jaw set with determination. "Hyun!" Day called to one of the soldiers inside. "Take my seat. Get to the rendezvous point." "What, Day, are you crazy?" Hyun appeared at the ramp. "Someone needs to stay with her." "I'm trained for survival situations. You're not." Day stepped back from the shuttle. "Go. That's an order from your medic. You need to survive to testify about what happened here." "Day, no!" Hyun's voice cracked. "Ramp closing in 5, the pilot announced coldly. Another soldier pushed forward. Specialist Tae, a quiet man Hana had seen working in communications. "If Day's staying, I'm staying too. He's going to need backup." "Tae, you don't have to," Day started. "Shut up! You think I'm going to sit safe on a ship knowing I left you here? Not happening." Tae jumped off the ramp and jogged over to where Hana stood. "Besides, someone needs to keep you from doing something heroically stupid." The ramp closed. Through the viewport, Hana could see Hyun's face, twisted with anguish and guilt. The shuttle lifted off, followed seconds later by the second shuttle. The landing bay emptied of noise, leaving just 3 figures standing in the silence. Captain Jiwon's voice came through Day's communicator. "Medic Day, what the hell do you think you're doing?" "My job, ma'am, protecting someone who needs protection." "This is a direct violation of evacuation protocol. You're throwing away your life for someone who matters, Captain. Isn't that what we're supposed to do?" Day switched off the communicator before she could respond. The outpost shook. The Kreth were beginning their assault on the perimeter defenses. Automated turrets fired, but they would only buy minutes. "Come on!" Day grabbed emergency packs from the supply lockers. "Lower tunnels, like I said. Tay, grab the extra weapon cells. Hana, follow me." They ran through the corridors as explosions rocked the base above them. Hana's mind spun. Day had given up his seat. He had chosen to stay with her, to risk his life, when he could have been safe. And Tay had followed without hesitation. The lower tunnels were dark and cold, carved into the moon's bedrock during the original mining operations. Day led them deep into the system, past sealed chambers and collapsed passages, until they reached a small room that looked stable and defensible. "This will do." Day set down his pack and immediately began assessing their supplies. "We have food for 4 days if we ration carefully, water for 5, 3 weapon cells plus our sidearms, the beacon, and each other." "You should have left me." Hana's voice shook. "You were safe." "Why would you give that up?" Day looked at her with those steady, kind eyes. "Because the whole point of everything we do, everything humanity stands for, is that we don't leave people behind. What good is survival if we lose what makes us human in the process?" "He's right," Tay added, checking his rifle. "Besides, I've been on this outpost for 9 months. I was getting bored. This is exciting." "This is suicide," Hana said. "Maybe." Day smiled. "Or maybe it's the most important thing we'll ever do. We'll find out together." Above them, the sounds of the Kreth assault intensified. They were in the base now, searching, destroying. Hana sat down on the cold floor, the beacon clutched in her hand, and looked at the 2 humans who had thrown away their chances of escape for her. They said she was unsuitable for marriage. They left her to die. But these humans, these strange, stubborn, impossibly compassionate humans, had chosen to stay with her in the darkness. They had valued her life more than their own safety. "Why?" she whispered. "Why am I worth this to you?" Day sat down beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Because every person is worth this, Hana. That's not something you earn or prove. It's just true. You matter because you exist. You're valuable because you're alive. And we're going to make sure you stay that way." 2 days, Tay said, setting up a watch position. "We survive 2 days, and the cavalry arrives. I've had worse odds." "When?" Day asked. "Okay, never. But there's a first time for everything." Despite the terror and impossibility of their situation, Hana felt something like laughter bubble up in her chest. These humans were insane. They were beautiful, and they had chosen to stand with her when the galaxy said she was not worth standing beside. She activated a light stick from Day's pack, filling the small chamber with a soft glow. 3 people in the darkness, surrounded by enemies, waiting for a rescue that might never come. But they were together. And somehow, that made all the difference. "Thank you," Hana said to both of them, "for choosing me." "Always," Day replied simply. "That's the promise humanity makes. To everyone, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Above them, the Kreth continued their occupation. But down in the tunnels, 3 souls held on to each other and on to hope, determined to prove that compassion was not weakness, that every life mattered. and that sometimes the bravest thing anyone could do was simply refuse to abandon those the world had thrown away. The first day in the tunnels passed in tense silence. Hana, Day, and Tay took turns sleeping and keeping watch. Above them, they could hear the Kreth moving through the base, their heavy footsteps and harsh voices carrying through the rock. Every sound made Hana's heart race, expecting discovery at any moment. But discovery did not come. The Kreth searched the main levels thoroughly, destroying equipment and setting up their occupation force. They did not seem interested in the old mining tunnels. "They think everyone evacuated," Tay whispered during his watch shift. "Why would they waste time searching empty tunnels?" "Let's hope they keep thinking that," Day replied. By the second day, their situation had changed. The Kreth had settled into a routine above, and Day's wounds from a minor fall in the tunnels had started to become a concern. He had scraped his side badly on jagged rocks when they first descended, and despite his own medical treatment, the wound was showing signs of infection in the damp tunnel environment. "You need proper antibiotics," Hana said, examining the wound by light stick glow. She had watched Day work often enough to recognize the warning signs. Red streaks radiating from the wound, increasing warmth, Day's slightly elevated temperature. "I'll be fine. We just need to make it until rescue arrives." But Day's voice lacked its usual confidence. "When will they come?" Hana asked. "Should be soon. We're past the 48-hour mark." Day checked his chronometer. "Could be any time now." But hours passed with no sign of rescue. The beacon sat between them, its light blinking steadily, broadcasting their location to anyone who might be listening, if anyone was listening. "What if they are not coming?" Hana finally voiced the fear they were all thinking. "They'll come." Day's words were firm, but Hana saw the doubt in his eyes. "The coalition doesn't abandon people. Maybe they think everyone evacuated successfully," Tay suggested. "Maybe they don't know anyone is still here." Day's condition worsened through the night. Fever set in, and he drifted in and out of consciousness. Hana did everything she could using the limited medical supplies in their packs and the techniques she had learned from watching him. She cleaned the wound, changed bandages, made him drink water even when he did not want to. "Your turn to be the medic," Day mumbled during a moment of clarity. He smiled weakly at her. "You learned well. I had a good teacher." "Hana." Day grasped her hand. "If something happens to me, you and Ty need to activate the beacon again. Get it to the surface if you can. Make sure rescue finds you." "Nothing is going to happen to you. We are all getting out of here." But Hana's voice shook. By the third day, Hana knew they could not wait any longer. Day needed real medical care, not the limited first aid she could provide. The Kreth were still above them, but staying in the tunnels meant watching Day die slowly. She made a decision. "Tay, help me get Day on his feet. We are taking the beacon to the surface." "The Kreth will see us," Tay protested. "Then they see us." "But Day dies if we stay here. At least on the surface, the rescue ships will have a clear signal." Hana grabbed the beacon. "We are not giving up. That is what he taught me. Humans do not give up." Tay stared at her for a moment, then nodded. "You're right. Okay. But I take point. You support Day. We move fast and quiet." They gathered their weapons and supplies. Day was barely conscious, but between them, Hana and Tay managed to get him mobile. They began the long climb back through the tunnels toward the surface. The journey was exhausting. Day's weight, though supported between two people, still bore heavily. Hana's muscles burned. Several times they had to stop and rest, hiding in shadowed alcoves whenever they heard movement nearby. As they neared the surface levels, they encountered their first Kreth patrol, 3 warriors, walking the corridors casually, confident in their control of the base. Tay's first shot took down the lead Kreth before it could raise its weapon. The second fell to Hana's borrowed rifle, her hand steadier than she expected. The third got off a shot that scorched the wall beside them before Tay finished it. "They'll know we're here now," Tay said grimly. "We need to move, now." They ran. Behind them, alarm calls echoed through the base. More Kreth were coming. Hana's lungs burned, but she kept moving, half carrying, half dragging Day between herself and Tay. They burst through a maintenance exit onto the surface. The moon's gray landscape stretched before them, and in the sky, the stars shone cold and distant. Hana activated the beacon, setting it to maximum power. The signal would be impossible to miss now, but so would they. Kreth warriors poured from the base entrance, dozens of them, weapons ready. Tay laid down covering fire, but they were completely exposed. There was nowhere to hide. "Get Day behind those rocks," Tay shouted, firing steadily. "I'll hold them as long as I can." Hana dragged Day toward a cluster of boulders, her strength fueled by pure desperation. Weapons fire crackled around them. She felt something hot graze her shoulder but did not stop. She had to get Day to cover. She had to keep him alive. They reached the rocks. Hana propped Day against the largest boulder and grabbed her rifle. Tay was still fighting, but he was being forced back. There were too many Kreth. Way too many. "Tay, fall back!" Hana fired at the advancing warriors, giving him a chance to retreat. Tay ran toward their position. He was 10 meters away when a Kreth shot caught him in the leg. He went down hard, rolling. Hana started to run to him, but Day's hand caught her wrist. "No," he rasped. "You'll die. Both of you." "I cannot leave him." But Tay was already dragging himself toward the rocks, still firing behind him. 3 Kreth warriors closed in on him. He shot one. The second tackled him. The third raised its weapon for a killing shot. Then the sky lit up. Brilliant energy beams lanced down from above, vaporizing the Kreth warriors around Tay. The remaining enemy forces scattered, looking up in panic. A human combat shuttle descended rapidly, its weapon systems blazing, clearing the landing zone with ruthless efficiency. More shuttles appeared, a full squad of them. Soldiers rappelled down before the ships even touched ground, establishing a perimeter, laying down covering fire. Within seconds, the Kreth force was in retreat, overwhelmed by the sudden assault. A medic team reached Hana's position first. "We have wounded!" one of them shouted into their communicator. "Combat medic in critical condition, 2 others injured." "Day first," Hana insisted, even as another medic began examining her shoulder wound. "Please, he stayed to protect me. Help him first." "We're helping everyone, ma'am. That's what we do." Captain Jiwon appeared, directing the evacuation. She saw Hana, and her expression flickered with something complicated. Surprise, relief, maybe even grudging respect. "Medic Day?" she asked the medical team. "Alive. Barely. We need to get him to the medical ship immediately." "Do it, Tay. Leg wound. Serious but survivable." Jiwon looked at Hana. "You carried them up here. You activated the beacon. They stayed for me. I could not let them die." Hana's voice was steady despite her exhaustion and pain. "They taught me that every life matters, even mine." Something shifted in Jiwon's face. She nodded slowly. "Get her on a medical shuttle. All 3 of them together." The evacuation was swift and professional. Hana found herself on a shuttle next to Day's stretcher, watching the medics work frantically to stabilize him. Tay was on another stretcher, conscious and gritting his teeth through the pain. "We made it," Tay said, sounding amazed. "We actually made it." Hana looked down at Day's pale face. His eyes were closed, but his breathing was steady under the oxygen mask. She took his hand carefully, mindful of the IV lines. "You were right," she whispered to him, even though he could not hear. "Rescue came. Your people did not abandon us, just like you did not abandon me." The shuttle broke atmosphere, leaving the moon behind. Through the viewport, Hana saw the fleet waiting above. Human ships, coalition vessels, all coordinated in a rescue operation that had come for 3 people in the vast emptiness of space. They said she was unsuitable for marriage. They left her to die on a desolate moon. But a human soldier had held her in his arms and carried her to safety. And when he needed her, she had carried him. Hana closed her eyes, still holding Dai's hand, and felt something she had never truly felt before. She felt valued. She felt seen. She felt like she mattered. Because to these humans, to this strange species that fought for every life like it was precious, she did matter. They all did. And that, Hana realized, was what made humanity truly special in a galaxy full of advanced civilizations. Not their weapons or their ships or their technology, but their stubborn, unshakable belief that every person deserved to be rescued, that no one should be left behind, that compassion was not weakness, but the greatest strength of all. The medical shuttle docked with the larger ship. Day and Tay were rushed to surgery. Hana was led to her own medical bay for treatment. As the doctors worked on her shoulder, she heard them talking. 3 people. They went back for 3 people. That's the coalition for you. No one left behind. Did you hear what that civilian did? Carried a combat medic through hostile territory while wounded herself. That's incredible. Hana smiled despite her exhaustion. She had been carried when she needed it, and when the time came, she had done the carrying. That was what Dai had shown her. That was what humanity understood. We all need help sometimes. We all need to be carried sometimes. And the measure of who we are is whether we're willing to do the carrying when others need us. 6 months had passed since the rescue. Hana stood in a small conference room on Terran Coalition Station Harmony, watching the holographic display as it connected to the Varath High Council chambers. She wore simple gray clothing, neither Varath nor human in style, but something that felt right to her. Comfortable. Her own. Beside her stood Sergeant Day, fully recovered from his injuries and wearing his dress uniform, medals pinned to his chest. He had been promoted and decorated for valor. Behind them, Specialist Tay leaned against the wall, his leg still in a support brace but healing well. The hologram flickered and resolved. The High Council of Varath Prime appeared, sitting in their elegant chamber with its crystalline walls reflecting countless colors. Hana recognized some of the faces, including her father, seated at the far end, looking older than she remembered. This session is called to address the petition of Hana, formerly of the House of Light. The head counselor's voice was cold and formal. You have requested an audience to formally renounce your Varath citizenship and request asylum with the Terran Coalition. This is highly irregular. I understand, Hana replied calmly. But I believe I have earned the right to speak my mind before I leave my people forever. You were exiled. You have no rights in Varath society. Then you have nothing to lose by listening. Hana stepped closer to the holographic projector. I want to tell you what I learned since you left me to die in the borderlands. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Her father still would not meet her eyes. I was told all my life that I was flawed, unsuitable, that my genetic imperfections made me worthless to our society. You decided I was not worth the resources to keep alive, so you exiled me to a war zone and considered the problem solved. Hana's voice was steady and clear. I was dying when the humans found me. Infection, fever, starvation. I had maybe hours left. We are aware of your rescue by the Terran military, the head counselor said. It changes nothing about your status. I am not asking to change my status. I am telling you what happened so you understand what you threw away. Hana gestured to Day. This human soldier, Corporal Day at the time, argued with his commander to save me. He violated military protocol. He risked his career. And he did it for a stranger from a species his people barely knew. Do you understand that? He valued my life more than his own safety. Humans are known for their emotional decision-making, another counselor said dismissively. It is a weakness of their species. Is it? Hana smiled. Because that weakness saved my life. That weakness made them strong enough to do what you could not. Value a person beyond their genetics. She paused, letting her words sink in. When the Kreth attacked our outpost, there were not enough evacuation seats. The humans could have left me behind again. It would have been logical, efficient, the right choice by any calculation my people would make. But Sergeant Day gave up his seat. He stayed with me in enemy territory. Specialist Tay did the same. 2 soldiers chose possible death over abandoning one flawed alien. Her father finally looked up. She saw pain in his face, but she felt no satisfaction, only sadness for what he had never understood. For 3 days, we hid in tunnels while the Kreth hunted us. Day was wounded protecting me. When his fever became life-threatening, when the logical choice would have been for me to hide and save myself, I carried him to the surface. I called for rescue knowing it would expose us to the enemy, because he taught me something my own people never could. And what is that? The head counselor asked, sounding bored. That every life has value. Not because of genetic perfection or social utility or any measure you use to judge worth, but simply because we exist. Because we are alive and feeling and capable of suffering and joy. Hana's voice grew stronger. Humans understand something you have forgotten. That a civilization is not measured by the perfection of its best members. It is measured by how it treats its most vulnerable ones. We have built a society of beauty and order, her father said suddenly. His voice cracked. We eliminated suffering through careful breeding. We created perfection. You eliminated the imperfect people, father. That is not the same as eliminating suffering. You just made sure you did not have to see it. Hana looked at him directly. I suffered my entire life in your perfect society. Every day I was reminded that I was broken, unsuitable, worthless. And when you decided I was too much trouble, you threw me away like defective equipment. Hana, her father started. But these humans, these supposedly emotional and weak humans, they saw me dying and said no, not on our watch. They fought for me when I could not fight for myself. They carried me when I could not walk. They valued my life so highly that they risked their own. Can you say the same? Can any of you say you would do that for someone you deemed flawed? Silence filled the council chamber. I learned something else from humans, Hana continued. I learned about their history. Hundreds of years ago, they also judged people by things they could not control. Skin color, physical disabilities, genetic conditions. They built societies that threw away the imperfect. But they changed, they grew. They fought wars and rewrote laws and transformed their entire civilization because they realized that was wrong. We are not humans, the head counselor said stiffly. Our way has served us for thousands of years. And in those thousands of years, how many people like me did you discard? How many brilliant minds, kind hearts, and valuable lives did you throw away because they did not meet your standards of perfection? Hana shook her head. The humans have been in space for barely a century, and already they are building something you never could. A society where everyone matters, where weakness is met with compassion, not contempt. She straightened, standing tall. So I am formally requesting that you revoke my citizenship. I do not want to be Vareth anymore. I have been offered asylum by the Terran Coalition, and I am accepting. I am going to spend my life helping other refugees who were discarded by their own people. I am going to teach them what humans taught me, that they are valuable exactly as they are. The council members looked at each other. Her father's shoulders shook, and she realized he was crying. It was the first time she had ever seen him cry. The request is granted, the head counselor said quietly. Your citizenship is revoked. You are no longer Vareth. Thank you. Hana bowed slightly, a last gesture of respect for the culture that had been hers. I hope someday you understand what you lost when you chose perfection over compassion. Goodbye. The hologram disconnected. Hana stood in the sudden silence of the conference room. She felt Day's hand on her shoulder, warm and supportive. "You okay?" he asked gently. "Yes," and she meant it. "I am finally okay." "That was quite a speech," Tay said from his position by the wall. "You told them the truth. Whether they heard it or not is up to them." Captain Ji-won entered the room. She had come to serve as Hana's official sponsor for her asylum request. "The Terran Council has approved your asylum petition. Welcome to the Coalition, Hana, officially." "Thank you, Captain." "Call me Ji-won. We are not on duty." The captain's stern face softened slightly. "What you did in those tunnels, carrying Day when he was wounded, getting them both to safety, that was heroic. We could use someone like you working with our refugee programs." "That is exactly what I want to do." Hana smiled. "Help others who were told they are unsuitable. Show them they are not alone." "You will be good at it." Ji-won nodded. "You understand what they have been through better than any of us could." Over the next weeks, Hana began her new life. She trained as a cultural liaison for the Coalition's refugee resettlement programs. She learned about dozens of other species who had outcasts and exiles, people discarded by their societies for various reasons, and she helped them find new homes, new purposes, new hope. She also spent time with Dai and Tay, who had become her closest friends. They told stories about Earth, taught her about human culture, and listened when she needed to talk about her past. They never made her feel like her grief or anger was too much. They simply accepted her. One evening, Hana and Day sat in the station's observation lounge, watching ships come and go through the massive windows. It reminded her of that night on the outpost when he had told her about his sister. "Do you think your sister would be proud of you?" Hana asked. Day smiled. "I think so. She always said everyone deserved a chance. I like to think she would have loved meeting you. I wish I could have met her." "Me too." Day looked at her. "But in a way, you carry on what she believed. You are helping others the way I could not help her. That means everything to me." "You saved my life, Day. More than once. I will spend the rest of my life trying to pass that forward." "That is all any of us can do. Take the compassion we are given and share it with others." Day gestured at the busy space station visible through the window. "Look at this place. Dozens of species, all different, all working together. Not because they are perfect, but because they are trying. Because they believe everyone deserves a place." Hana watched a refugee transport dock at a nearby bay. Families would be disembarking, scared and hopeful, starting new lives far from the homes that rejected them. Soon she would be down there helping them, showing them that unsuitable did not mean unworthy. "They said I was unsuitable for marriage," Hana said quietly. "They meant I was unsuitable for life, for existence, for taking up space in their perfect world." "And they were completely wrong," Day replied firmly. "You are suitable for exactly what you are. A survivor, a fighter, a person who learned compassion from hardship and chose to use it to help others. If that is not suitable for a good life, I do not know what is." Hana smiled, feeling tears on her cheeks. Happy tears this time. "You held me in your arms when I was dying. You refused to leave me behind. You taught me that I mattered. Thank you for that. Thank you for everything." "You are welcome. But you know what? You carried me too. Literally carried me when I could not walk. We took turns saving each other. That is how it should be. That is the human way. That is the right way." Day stood and offered his hand. "Come on. Let us go help those refugees get settled. Show them what you showed me." "What is that?" "That being thrown away by one world does not mean you cannot find a home in another. That unsuitable is just a word, and words only have the power we give them. And that sometimes the people who do not fit into perfect societies are the ones who end up changing the galaxy." Hana took his hand and stood. Together they walked toward the refugee processing center, ready to welcome the lost and discarded, ready to show them that they had value, that they mattered, that they belonged somewhere. Because that was what humans did. They saw the broken and said you can be whole. They saw the rejected and said you are accepted. They saw the unsuitable and said you are exactly what the universe needs. And Hana, once deemed flawed and worthless, now spent her days proving that humanity was right, that every person had something to offer, that compassion was not weakness but the foundation of true strength. They said she was unsuitable for marriage. They left her to die alone on a desolate moon. But a human soldier held her in his arms and carried her toward a future she never imagined possible, a future where she was valued, where she was needed, where she was home. And in the end, that made all the difference.